My 4-year-old wife cheated on me with my cousin, but I had annulled our marriage 3 years ago without her knowing. And when she found out, she lost everything in 48 hours. I'm 54 years old. I work in private equity investments. And what happened a few years ago basically taught me that you can know someone for years and still have no idea who they really are. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Olivia at that charity gala in Manhattan, I was 49, she was 24. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Believe me, I've heard it all. But the thing is that at the time, I didn't care about the age difference. I mean, I had just come out of years of mourning after my first wife died suddenly when I was in my late 32nds. And Olivia was like this bright light in the middle of all that darkness I'd been carrying for so long. I met her at the plaza, one of those galas where everyone wears tuxedos and designer dresses and pretends they actually care about the charitable cause, when really, they're just there to be seen. She was standing by the bar, wearing this dark blue dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and when our eyes met it, was like, I don't know, like, something clicked. We talked all night, and I was surprised by how intelligent she was, how articulate, how interested she seemed in my work and in my kids, Sophie and Ethan, who at that time were like 18 and 16 years old, respectively. She asked about them almost immediately, what they were studying, how they were handling the loss of their mother, and that impressed me, because most people at those events only want to talk about themselves or business. The following months were, honestly, incredible. Olivia integrated into my life in a way that seemed so natural, so easy. I took her to meet my kids after about 3 months, and although Sophie was a bit reserved at first, which he completely understand, their mother had died relatively recently. Ethan adored her from the first moment. I took her to family dinners, work events, weekend trips to the Hamptons where I have a property, and she just fit in, you know? Or at least that's what I thought. It was at one of those family dinners where she met my cousin Lucas, who was like 39 years old back then, a guy with a lot of charm, but with a pretty spotty track record of failed business ventures that the family knew well but were too polite to talk about openly. Lucas had always been the type of person who had big ideas but terrible execution, you know. Those entrepreneurs who are convinced their next project will be the one that takes off, but who end up borrowing money from the family every 6 months. But he was charismatic. He'd give you a hug and make you feel like you were the most important person in the world, and looking back, I should have noticed that Olivia and he connected way too quickly that first night. They spent like half an hour talking in a corner about I don't know what, and when I asked her afterwards, she said they were just discussing tech startups, which made sense, because Lucas was always pitching something new. Fast forward like 6 months after meeting Olivia, and Lucas contacts me with this investment proposal in a tech startup that supposedly was going to revolutionize I don't know what sector. He had a complete pitch deck, financial projections that seemed way too optimistic, the whole package. And here's what's interesting. Olivia was the one who really encouraged me to seriously consider the investment. She'd say things like, Lucas is family, and he has so much potential, he just needs someone who believes in him. And I thought it was sweet that she cared so much about my family and about giving people opportunities. I invested $200,000 in that project, not because I completely believed in it, but because, honestly, I wanted to impress Olivia by showing her I was generous with my family. What an idiot I was. Seriously. A year after we met, I proposed to her. I took her on my yacht to the Mediterranean, hired a string quartet, had roses all over the damn boat, and when I got down on one knee with that 4-carat diamond ring, she cried and said yes, and that it was the happiest moment of her life. We got married 6 months later at my Hamptons estate, a spectacular wedding with 300 guests, white tents all over the garden, a jazz band, catering from one of the best restaurants in New York. Lucas was one of the groomsmen, because obviously I had no idea what was going on, and in the wedding photos you can see him standing there in his tuxedo, smiling at the camera like he wasn't planning anything. Sophie gave a beautiful speech about welcoming Olivia to the family, and I felt like the luckiest man in the world. How little I knew. And here's the part that still kills me when I think about it. Literally 4 months after the wedding, I took a private flight to La Romana in the Dominican Republic and annulled the marriage. Yeah, you read that right. 4 months after that $400,000 wedding, that diamond ring, All those vows and promises. I went and legally annulled everything. And no, Olivia had no idea. I hired the best matrimonial lawyer I could find, someone who specialized in complicated high net worth cases, and he explained the whole process to me. It turned out that in the Dominican Republic, you can annul a marriage relatively discreetly if you know how to navigate the system, and I had the resources to make sure everything was done correctly and in complete silence. The paperwork was sealed, filed, completely legal. Officially, in the eyes of the law, Olivia and I were never married. She didn't know it. Nobody knew it except my lawyer and me. Why did I do it? Good question. The truth is that something didn't feel right from the beginning, but I ignored it because I was in love or because I was an idiot or both. There were little things that bothered me, like the way she'd always check her phone and turn it face down when I entered the room, or how she suddenly had all these plans with girlfriends I never met, or the way Lucas and she still messaged each other pretty frequently, even though she said they were just friends. My lawyer had suggested a prenup, but Olivia got so offended when I mentioned it that I ended up giving in because I didn't want to start our marriage with mistrust. But something inside me was screaming to protect my assets, to protect my children, so I found another way. The annulment was my insurance policy, my plan B, and it turned out to be the best decision I made in this whole story. The next 3 years were like living in this weird bubble where externally everything seemed perfect. We traveled through Europe, spent summers in the Hamptons, winters skiing in Aspen. I'd buy her whatever she wanted. She had unlimited access to my credit cards, lived in my Manhattan penthouse. That's worth like $15 million. Olivia would post photos on Instagram of our trips, of dinners at luxury restaurants, of the lifestyle that I was basically completely financing. My kids had come to accept her more or less. Sophie still kept some distance, but Ethan really loved her. And all that time, I had those annulment papers stored in my office, safe, just waiting. Though honestly, I had started to think that maybe I'd never need them. Then things started to change. Olivia began coming home late, like 2 or 3 in the morning, saying she'd been with girlfriends at clubs or bars. At first, I didn't think much of it because, she was young, and I didn't want to be the controlling old husband who wouldn't let her have a social life. But then it became more frequent, and when I'd ask her who she'd been with, she'd get defensive, tell me to stop being paranoid, to trust her. Her phone became something she protected, like it was nuclear launch codes. She'd take it to the bathroom when she showered, sleep with it under her pillow, never leave it alone in a room with me. The first real blow came when I overheard her on a phone call. I had come home early, like at 3 in the afternoon when I normally got home at 6, and she was on the penthouse terrace talking to someone. I don't know why, but something made me stay still and listen, instead of going out and greeting her, and what I heard basically broke my heart into pieces. She was saying things like, "Benjamin is so boring. All he does is work and talk about investments. But well, at least he's stable and has money." And then she laughed. Not a giggle, but a real laugh. And said something about how it was good to have financial security even if she had to pretend to be interested in his business stories. I stood there in my own living room feeling like I'd been kicked in the stomach. After that, I started paying more attention. One night, when she was asleep, I took her phone from the nightstand. I knew her password because I'd seen her put it in like 1,000 times. She wasn't exactly careful about that. I unlocked it and found a text message from someone saved as Eleanor Contacts. The message said something like, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. When can we see each other alone again?" My heart was beating so hard I thought I was going to wake up. Olivia. I checked more messages, but she had been regularly deleting them. Only a few recent ones remained. I put the phone back exactly where it was and stayed awake the rest of the night, trying to process what I had just discovered. Elle could be anyone, but I had my suspicions. Lucas had been more present in our lives lately, showing up at family dinners, calling Olivia to ask her random things, inviting us to events. I decided to test my theory. I organized a dinner at Lucas's place, like a casual family gathering, and I observed. And let me tell you that when you know what to look for, the signs are everywhere. The way they looked at each other when they thought no one was paying attention, how they found excuses to be near each other, how Lucas touched her lower back in a way that lasted a second longer than appropriate. Sophie noticed it too. She mentioned it to me afterwards. In private, said something felt weird between them, but that maybe she was imagining things. She wasn't imagining anything. A few weeks later, I managed to unlock her phone again while she was in the shower. This time, I got into her WhatsApp messages and found everything. Conversations with Lucas that went back 2 years. Explicit photos. Messages about how much they both hated me. Plans about how to get more money out of me. There were messages where Lucas told her to be patient, to wait for the right moment, that once they had access to more of my assets, they could be together openly. But that wasn't all. She also had conversations like that with at least 3 other men. Guys she'd apparently been seeing behind my back for who knows how long. One of them was a personal trainer from her gym. Another was a guy who worked in finance that I vaguely knew from the Manhattan social circuit. I felt like someone had emptied me out inside. What I did next was methodical, calculated, because if my career has taught me anything, it's that emotion loses money but strategy wins wars. I started quietly transferring assets, moved money from joint accounts to accounts that were only in my name, changed beneficiaries on my insurance policies and my wills, basically closed every access door that Olivia had to my wealth. I hired a private investigator to document everything. I wanted photographic evidence, recordings, text messages, absolutely everything. For 3 months, I acted like nothing was happening. I kept being the loving husband, gave her good morning kisses, asked her how her day was. It was the performance of my life. Seriously. The moment of truth came when she tried to use our joint credit card to buy a $20,000 Hermes bag, and the card was declined. She came home furious, screaming about how she'd been humiliated at the boutique, demanding to know what was going on. I was sitting on the living room couch, drinking a 30-year-old whiskey I'd been saving for a special occasion. And I told her as calmly as possible that I had decided to close some accounts because I was reorganizing my finances. She went hysterical, saying I couldn't do that to her, that she was my wife and had a right to that money. I laughed. I literally laughed in her face because the irony was so perfect I couldn't help it. The next day, I went to Lucas's office. He had this co-working space in the Flatiron district that I had been subsidizing without knowing it through payments I'd made for his failed startup. I walked in unannounced, found him at his desk looking at his laptop, probably planning his next move to get more money out of me. He saw me and his face went through every possible emotion. Surprise, fear. Then he tried to put on a casual smile. I told him, I know everything about you and Olivia, every message, every lie, every plan you made behind my back. I've known you since I was a kid. We grew up together in this family, and this is how you repay me. He tried to deny it at first, then tried to explain it, say it was a mistake, that they fell in love without meaning to. I told him he had 24 hours to get out of New York, or I would make public every conversation, every photo, every detail of his betrayal, not just to me, but to the entire family. That night, I had the conversation with Olivia. I had invited her to dinner at the penthouse, had prepared her favorite food, had put out candles like it was a romantic evening. She arrived confused but hopeful, probably thinking all the drama about the declined card had been resolved. We ate in silence for a few minutes before I said, So, how was your day? Did you do anything interesting? See anyone special? She said no, that she'd been alone all day. I said, That's weird, because my private investigator has photos of you at a hotel in the Upper East Side this afternoon with a man who looks a lot like my cousin Lucas. The way her face lost all color was almost comical. She tried to deny it, then tried to minimize it, saying they were just talking about business. Then finally, when she saw I wasn't believing any of it, she broke down and started crying, saying it had been a mistake, that she loved me, that Lucas had manipulated her. I told her I had seen all the messages, that I knew about the other men too, that there was no point in continuing to lie. She changed tactics then, got aggressive, started screaming that I was a boring old man, that she deserved to have a life, that all this was my fault for working so much and not paying her enough attention. That's when I pulled out the papers, the annulment papers from La Romana. With all the official stamps, all the signatures, all the legal documentation that proved our marriage had been annulled over 3 years ago. The way she processed that information was like watching her die inside in slow motion. First confusion, then disbelief, then the realization of what that meant. Not only that we weren't married, but that we had never been legally married during all those years she thought we were. That meant she had no legal right to anything, no claim to my estate, nothing. 3 years of her life thinking she was securing her future, and it turns out it was all an illusion. I gave her 48 hours to get her things out of the penthouse. I was generous in that sense. I allowed her to take the clothes, the jewelry I'd given her, her personal belongings. But the penthouse, the cars in her name that I had paid for, the club memberships, all that ended immediately. I watched her pack her suitcases, crying, calling girlfriends to see if she could stay with them because she had basically become homeless overnight. Part of me felt something. I don't know if it was pity or sadness for what could have been, but most of me just felt cold, calculated satisfaction watching her lose everything. But I wasn't finished. I organized a family meeting at my Hamptons house. I summoned everyone, uncles, aunts, cousins, my children, everyone who mattered in our family. I rented out the main hall and set up a presentation. Literally a PowerPoint presentation like it was a business meeting. When everyone arrived and sat down confused by the formality, I started showing the evidence. Screenshots of the messages between Olivia and Lucas, photos from the private investigator, bank statements showing all the suspicious transfers, audio recordings where Lucas talked to other family members trying to get money out of them too. It was brutal, methodical, and absolutely devastating. Lucas was there that day. I had insisted he come, even though he tried to make up excuses. When I finished my presentation, the silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My Aunt Maria, who had always defended Lucas because he was her favorite son, got up and left the room crying. My uncle Roberto, the patriarch of that side of the family, walked up to Lucas and told him he was dead to him, to never set foot in a family gathering again, that he didn't exist as a member of this family. One by one, family members got up and literally turned their backs on him, some insulting him, others just shaking their heads in disappointment. It was the most complete exile you can imagine. He was completely isolated from everyone who had ever supported or loved him. Sophie and Ethan were there too, and watching them process all this information was difficult. Sophie hugged me afterwards and told me she was sorry for doubting my instincts about Olivia at first, that she had also noticed weird things but thought she was being unfair. Ethan was devastated because he had really come to love Olivia, saw her as a maternal figure in some ways, and feeling betrayed like that in his 20s was hard. But they both understood why I did what I did, why I waited, why I was so methodical in my response. I taught them that when someone betrays you, you don't respond with emotion and chaos. You respond with strategy and precision. It's been like 6 months since all that. Olivia is apparently living in a shared apartment in Queens, working at, I don't know what office job, a pretty significant fall from the Manhattan penthouse. I've seen her a few times by chance at social events. She looks different, more tired, less polished. I think she finally understands that actions have consequences and that you can't build a life on lies and manipulation without everything eventually crumbling down. Lucas left New York completely. I heard he's in Los Angeles trying to reinvent himself again. But his reputation preceded him because some of my contacts there already knew the whole story, thanks to the wonderful gossip network of our community. As for me, I still manage my investments. I still live in the penthouse. I still spend time with my children. The difference is that now I'm much more careful about who I let into my life, much more protective of my wealth and my peace of mind. I've started dating someone new, a 8-year-old woman who has her own successful career in medicine and who doesn't need my money for anything. It's refreshing, honestly, to have conversations with someone who's at my same life level and who understands the value of hard work because she's experienced it herself. Last week I was organizing some papers in my office and found a photo from the wedding, from that perfect day in the Hamptons, with the white tents and all those people smiling. Olivia looked beautiful in her wedding dress. I looked happy in a way I hadn't been in years, and Lucas was there in the background, smiling groomsman, without anyone knowing what was really going on. I looked at that photo for a long time trying to feel something, anger, sadness, nostalgia. But the truth is, I only felt relief. Relief that my instinct to protect myself with that annulment turned out to be right. Relief that I discovered the truth when I did. Relief that I can close this chapter and move on with my life without those toxic people draining my energy, and my resources. Sometimes the best decisions you make are the ones nobody else knows you made, you know?